what is a Sufi path, a tariqah, as it is called. Inshallah, in this video we are going to describe what the inner path of Islam or tariqah is, what it means, and also a little bit on what it is not, and hopefully this video inshallah is going to answer many of your questions. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We ask the help of Allah and the spirit of the rightly guided leaders on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, Sirat al-Ladina an'amta alayhim, as we say in Surat al-Fatiha. And as I mentioned before this, asking for help from the helpers of Allah, the friends of Allah, the awliya. This is known as tawassul, and it is described in Quran chapter 5 verses 35. Okay, so every prophet were given two sets of teachings, the outer teaching and the inner teaching. The outer way for everyone, and the inner way for the spiritually inclined people who want to journey within and reach enlightenment. So every prophet were given two teaching. The outer way we call it Sharia, and the inner way, which is tariqah. So Sharia is the outer, tariqah is the inner. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was given these two sets of teachings: the Sharia, the outer way for everyone, and tariqah, the inner way for the spiritual aspirants. Okay, you can see this also in the book of Bay'ah. So when you join a tariqah, you take a pledge of allegiance with a sheikh. It's known as Bay'ah, and this is Sunnah of Rasulullah ﷺ. You can check the book of Bay'ah, the book of pledging allegiance. Many people pledged allegiance to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and they cited certain things that are I will follow you and so on, and I will speak the truth and so on. So people went to Prophet ﷺ, not everyone but some, and pledged allegiance, and this is Bay'ah. Tariqah itself is a Quranic term, and Prophet ﷺ, he was not the first prophet of Islam, as it's very clear if you read Quran and Hadith. He was the final prophet, the Khatam Nabiin, the seal of prophets. He confirms everything that was revealed before, and he comes with the final revelation, which we know as Quran, and therefore he seals the lineage of revelation. But the prophets that came before, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, or Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, and some others like Noah, Lut, Solomon, etc. All of these prophets were given the outer teaching and the inner teaching. Okay, so how do we know this? Because Quran says we have sent prophets to all nations of mankind. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that there has been 124,000 prophets sent to humanity and 313 messengers. So then we know that there must have been prophets sent all over, and Quran and Hadith mention some 30, 40, 50, 60-ish prophets. So there are hundreds of thousands that are not named that have been prophets. And Muhammad ﷺ said, all prophets are paternal brothers, their mothers are different, but their religion or their deen is one, or their way of life is one. Okay. So, Sharia, most people are familiar with this outer teachings: how to pray, how to fast, how to give zakat, and so on and so forth. What's the method? What's the wudu? What's the right way of doing wudu? What's the teaching? How to be a husband? How to be a wife? How to marry? How to bury? How to distribute wealth after someone has passed away? Is outer teaching. Okay. And the outer teaching is very important in tariqah, and we are going to see this, that the form and ritual is very important, very important in tariqah, because the outer and the inner is always one. Huwa al-awwalu wa ahiru wa zahiru wa batinu wa zahiru wa batinu wa zahiru wa batinu. Allah is the manifest and the hidden, so the zahir and the batin, the outer and inner, is always one. Okay, we're gonna touch on that later. So tariqah is the inner path of Islam. It's not mandatory, fard. So every person who is a Muslim does not have to join a tariqah if they don't want to. Like Sheikh Hassan Sise said, you're a Muslim and you do your 5 pillars, that's excellent. It's excellent to be a Muslim. So tariqah is not a must. It is for those who want to join and journey within and reach Allah. So what then is tariqah? Tariqah is a path to Allah. It's the inner path to Allah. Tariqah is the inner path to Allah. Tariqah is the inner path within to reaching Allah. Allah is the destination of the tariqah. So now I've done all my 5 salats, I've done my zakat, I've done my hajj and so on. But I want to know Allah. I want to reach Allah. Then that's tariqah. Okay? So it's the inner path to reaching Allah. So these maqams that we discussed, Islam, Iman, Ihsan. Islam has 3 levels, Iman has 3 levels, Ihsan has 3 levels, according to the tradition of Sheikh Ahmed Tijani as taught by Nyas, radiallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with both of them. You can travel all of the 9 levels in tariqah, but tariqah specifically is dealing with the levels of Ihsan, so Muraqaba, Mushahada, wa Ma'arifa, and traveling those paths within yourself. So this is tariqah. So what then does it mean when you are in tariqah? You need to have a sheikh and take allegiance to the sheikh through the bay'ah, and this sheikh needs to have a lineage to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So the sheikh must have taken bay'at with the sheikh, was taken bay'at with the sheikh, was taken bay'at with the sheikh, in an traceable lineage back to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. If the chain is broken somewhere, then traditionally the way of looking at that is that is not an authentic tariqah, or that is a tariqah that doesn't have connection. This is how one has traditionally looked at it. So traditionally you take bay'ah with a sheikh that has a traceable lineage back to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And then you join the inner path. So what is the inner path about, the tariqah? It's essentially about elimination. It's about as mentioned in the video on Ihsan. You might want to recheck the video on Ihsan just to refresh the memory. Tariqah is not about, it's not a scholarly association where you study high quantities of knowledge. That's not what it is. It's not a school where you learn Islamic law like fiqh through Maliki school or Hanafi school or something like this. That's not tariqah. You might learn fiqh in a tariqah. A sheikh might teach you fiqh. That's very, very possible, and many shuyukh teach Islamic law because that's the level of the student. Tariqah is not a place where you study tawheed or you know, Aqidah, what is the Ahlus Sunnah Aqidah or something like this. You might very well do this in tariqah because the teaching is also tailored to the student in question, but that is not essentially what it is. Tariqah, at its purest form, is the mystical path where it's all about elimination. It's about becoming nothing. So tariqah takes you to Allah. How do you travel towards Allah? By becoming nothing. You have to remove everything inside of you that is other than Allah. So you can say that tariqah is described by La ilaha illallah. The statement La ilaha illallah describes tariqah perfectly. It's a La ilaha. You have to get rid of all of the false deities that we are attached to. All the theories, concepts, identities, they have to go. So the Shaykh of Tariqah, as we have learned it, particularly in the Tijani path, is going to eliminate for you, is going to remove things from you. So the best way I can describe how that feels, it's like fasting. So Tariqah essentially is fasting your ego, or fasting the self, the nafs. Tazkiyatun nafs, you might have heard the term Tazkiyatun nafs. Yes, Tazkiyatun nafs is what I'm describing right now, and that's the essence of tariqah. It means purifying yourself. But how do you purify yourself so that you travel towards Allah? You remove all the illas. So it's a path of negation. It's a path of subtraction, the minus sign in mathematics. It's like it's like a computer. Our mind is like a computer. I've been doing gaming since 1998, and I have had many different gaming computers, and it's always the same. You know, you store a lot of data and files and games on a computer, and then it starts running slowly and corrupt. Then you have to reboot the entire computer after a while, where you delete all the files and start it from fresh, Windows in case it's a PC. So tariqah is similar like that. It's deleting. You're removing all the concepts and all the things that you think that you know, and so on. So this is what tariqah is about. It's about removing all the false pictures, identities, concepts, theories that we have, because these things are ultimately something that our nafs is attached to, and they are ultimately something other than Allah. It's an illah. It's la ilaha illallah. So the only way we can truly know Allah, ma'arifah, is by removing everything that is not Allah. The only way we can truly know Allah, arif billahi ma'arifah, is by removing everything inside of us that is other than Allah. I repeat one more time. The only way we truly can know Allah is to remove everything other than which is not Allah, the la ilaha illallah. So this is tariqah, the removal. And fana, which is a target in tariqah, which happens after mushahada on the path, is when you come to that state where there is no self anymore. There is nothing. There's no person, no identity. It's only Allah is present. But Allah is not present in this kind of self form that I am Allah. Not like this. This is again not what is tariqah, and some of the teachings with Hazrat Ibn Arabi, which are misunderstood, because as I mentioned before, people are looking at that from the perspective of self. They are not looking at it from fana, where there is no self, because they have not gone through this process of removal, negation, elimination. So this is tariqah. When you join, the Shaykh is going to give you zikrullah, very specific zikr, with chants that you cite, that is designed to take you on the path. So essentially, Salatul Fati is a light vehicle. I don't want to go into too much detail. Light vehicle, Merkaba, if you have studied mysticism, that takes yourself through the levels. But when you are doing this process, you need to eliminate things, because otherwise, if you're just adding new things, you are not in the process of la ilaha illallah. It ultimately becomes something that the self is attached to, and we want to be attached to nothing but Allah. We want to be attached to nothing but Allah on the tariqah. One common question is, can you follow many tariqah at once? No. It's not possible, and the reason why that's not possible is because then we have not really understood what is tariqah. Tariqah is a process of elimination, and in this process there even comes a time where the sheikh will be eliminated. So if you are following two different paths, and one is beginning to be eliminated, then you still have that other one that is not eliminated. So you are not helping yourself at all by following many teachings. I mean, you can do whatever you want. We are free to do whatever we want. But if it is marifah you want, if it's tariqah you want, which is the process of negation, becoming nothing essentially, then you're just doing yourself a very, very big disservice by joining many paths at once. It is the same with studying a lot in tariqah. That is not like, it's not super recommended. I mean, yeah, we can study a lot, but you know, anything that we read is ultimately going to have to be eliminated. So the more we study, the more we are doing ourselves a disservice again in the meditative process of eliminating and becoming nothing on the tariqah. So you have maybe heard of the stories of Maulana Rumi. When he met his sheikh, he said, throw away all the books. Of course, because that's what tariqah is about, elimination. So he's not achieving, it's not helping him on the path to study more. It doesn't mean that we cannot study. We should definitely study what Allah wants us to study. But that is also it. When you empty yourself, you become more a vessel that Allah can now put unfiltered things into. So the more you empty yourself, the more you become useful to Allah, essentially. The more we empty ourselves, the more we become useful to Allah. So then it becomes a matter of we want to study what Allah wants us to study, because Allah wants us to do a particular task. This can be done from a state of fana. So we become empty, and the most empty people that have ever lived here are prophets. The prophets are so empty, they are so fana, that Allah can put a message of a divine revelation and they will not alter any of that message. They will say it exactly the way it was revealed, like Angel Jibril revealed it to Prophet Muhammad. If Prophet would have had ego, he would have altered the message, and then it would have been the word of Prophet and not the word of Allah. But he is so fana fi Allah, he's so gone, he's so non-self, that anything that Allah puts, Prophet gives. That's what it means essentially to be Rasulullah. Anything that Allah gives, you give, this is Prophet. Anything that Allah does, Prophet gives. So it is not Prophet's message. The Quran is not Prophet's book. It's Allah's book. It's Allah's message. It's Allah's way. Okay. Tariqah is this. Not saying that anyone is going to reach a maqam, the level of a Prophet, because they're sealed by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu. But it is a process of becoming empty, 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 so that we become more useful to Allah. Because the 0 and 1 fundamentally hang together like this. If you want to reach 1, you have to delete everything until you are 0. And then that divine ultimate reality is shining more clearly. So tariqah is like fasting. It's like losing weight. It's like rebooting your computer. It's like throwing out the garbage and cleaning your room. It's removal, and the process can be very interesting, but it can also be stressful and a little bit painful for the self, the ego, because you're really isolating it, and you're really fasting your ego. You're fasting your ego. You're staying away from certain things. You're negating things, and that is. And then you start really reaching this kind of muraqabah, the real muraqabah, where you see how your ego works, how it's hungry all the time. And some of the Sufi masters, such as Sering Tuba, who also practice the Tijani path, he describes the ego like that is all the time hungry. And you defeat the ego by starving it. This kind of muraqabah, you can only get it in tariqah when you starve your own ego and you start seeing how it always wants things. It wants to play with the mobile phone, it wants to jump from one to another. But when you learn to starve your ego, as you do on the tariqah, you learn to understand how the ego works. And this is the muraqabah, the observation of the self, the first level of ihsan. Okay, so and this process of negation and removing and starving your ego, it is necessary to have a sheikh. It's not recommended to try it yourself. I mean, we are free to do what we want, but it is my advice would be certainly to have a sheikh. You need a rope to hold on to, and that is where tasawwuf comes in. Tasawwuf is originally thought to be that small level of teaching that you're given in the process of eliminating everything. Just a small type of, a little bit of theory combined with practice to sort of help you on that journey, because it can become very much actually for the ego to start it like this and remove all the concepts, even what you think you know about Islam, remove it and transform. So this is why the form is very important. It becomes a pillar for us. The salat, the hadith and Quran becomes something that almost keeps us sane to a certain degree. Yeah, it becomes actually something that keeps us mentally sane, something to hold on to when we are on the process of tariqah and eliminating. to becoming nothing. And this is also the process. The more you remove, the more you, then when you read Quran and Hadith, you get a more pure type of unfiltered understanding of it. So the form and essence therefore are one. So tariqah is the essence of Islam, you can say, the spiritual essence of Islam. Sufism is the spiritual essence of Islam, while the fiqh or the sharia, fiqh is like the study of the sharia, is the form of it. So, and both of these are manifesting Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You just call the inner spiritual reality of Prophet, that's what you call tasawwuf, and you call the form sharia, but the tasawwuf and the sharia are always one. In Prophet and in people who have reached this level, the awliya, you know, close friends to Allah, who are approaching these high maqams. The form and essence is always one. So you cannot just study tasawwuf and know form, because how is it gonna manifest then? Because it will always manifest in one way, and you can also not study just the form without any spiritual reality. So when we pray, for example, Allahu Akbar, there is a spirit that is manifesting in this way of praying. Allahu Akbar, this is an act of surrender. You're holding up your hands like, I am nothing, the ego is nothing, Allah is Lord. Allahu Akbar, Allah is greater, Allah is infinitely great. And then you start, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Rahman Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, so on. You praise the great Allah. So the form in what you cite is a manifestation of the inner reality of surrendering the self to Allah. And the best is when you say Allahu Akbar and then you do sajda. Your forehead is on the ground. Now the spiritual reality of the sajda is a complete act of surrender. You can even describe fana or the death of the ego a little bit like sajda. You're gone completely. You're nothing. Allah is complete Lord. You are completely surrendering. Not only in theory, you are surrendering physically to your Lord, and you are showing it in an act of surrender. So the form and essence is always one. The outer and the inner is always one. No prophet can only be given an outer teaching or only an inner teaching. They're always giving outer and inner teaching, the sharia wa tariqah. And to do this process, it becomes very difficult if you don't have a sheikh, because you have to eliminate things, and ultimately there comes a point where even the sheikh has to, you know, step aside. We don't have to go so far in this video, inshallah, but hopefully this is helpful. So tariqah is elimination. It's about becoming less and less and less, and the tradition becomes very important then, because it's very hard on the self to start it like this. And this is why mixing different traditions, it's only gonna make it, your own tariqah harder for you. That's all I can say. I mean, we are free to do what we want, but it's only gonna make the process of, you know, becoming nothing, reaching maqam al-fana, or reaching the state of fana, the level of fana, the state of fana. Hal is state, maqam is permanent sort of level. It just makes fana much harder. So this is it. Hopefully this video is helpful. Leave any comments below if you have. Assalamu alaikum.